Welcome back to the Friday prop party with the Sportsline Model Team. I'm your host, Mackenzie Brooks, and we have the crew with us, Steven, Derek, Jake, and of course, John is in the chat with those MLB questions. He'll be there the whole time, but we have a lot to cover in college football and NFL, so we're going to stick to that on the screen. And I will mention we have some big, exciting news to share, probably a little later in the show, maybe at the end, but definitely worth sticking around for because we will be having a lot of changes starting very soon. So, as always, I say we start with our college football picks. We have some Friday night lights tonight. Just one pick, but Jake, what do you think here?
Yeah, Jack Plummer over half an interception. You get a minus 115 on DraftKings, which is better than the minus 137 that Prize Picks and Underdog equate to. Plummer's thrown an interception in his last 5 road starts. And if you listen to the Cover 3 podcast yesterday, they were saying how tough of an environment NC State is especially on a Friday night. So I like Plummer to throw a pick tonight.
Right. So that's a good way to start off the weekend. But then we have plenty of picks over in this early slate, including USC, Colorado, UF, Kentucky, a lot of big games here.
Yeah, so Ricky Pearsall is the Gators' number 1 wide receiver, and he's had 6 receptions in 3 of his 4 games. The other game, he had 8. But if you go back to last year, 8 is high, and he hasn't had 7 in any games. So the under is hit in pretty much every game he's played. The Gators got their star freshman Eugene Wilson back for this game. And I think the Gators are going to try to run the ball first against Kentucky with ETN, who didn't really run the ball that often against Charlotte last week. I think they saved him for this week. It's definitely going to come down to how the game's trending. If the Gators are ahead, they're going to keep the ball on the ground. And the spread is about even, so it could go either way. If they're behind, then Pearsall could get more targets. But even then, if he gets a bunch of targets, hitting 7 receptions is a lot in an offense that isn't that high-paced.
Right.
Garrett Schrader under 1.5 touchdowns. You get a minus 170. It's a little juicy, but Syracuse lost their top receiver Rondé Gadsden to a season-ending injury earlier in the season, and they've been pretty much running the ball 50 times a game. Schrader doesn't throw the ball that often. I think he only completed the ball to 3 different guys last week, and that Clemson defense is really good still, even though Clemson isn't as good as they've been the past decade. They're still a good defense. I think he either hits 1 or 0 touchdowns. It's juicy at minus 170, but I like it a lot, and think of it as if it was like a minus 170 money line and still like that there. Right. Theo Johnson over 23.5 receiving yards for Penn State. They're playing Northwestern, which isn't a great defense. I saw that Theo Johnson played all 71 snaps on offense for Penn State last week, and he ran a ton of routes. His over-under catches at 2.5, and he averages like 15, 16 yards per catch. So if he hits 2 catches, I like that over big time at 23.5. We have him at 38 yards. Mm-hmm. Drew Aller, Penn State. So we like Penn State a lot against Northwestern. We like them to feast. We have the projected score 37-8 in that game. Aller only threw for like 170 yards last week against Iowa, but he had 4 touchdowns. So I thought it was interesting that his line's at 1.5 against a not very good Northwestern team, and you get it at minus 130 on DK. And then Dorian Singer. Dorian Singer's hurt me a couple times this year, but his prop line keeps getting lower and lower and lower. So I think in the game 1, I bet him over 60.5 yards, and now it's at 30.5 yards. And he only had 1 reception for 14 yards last week, but he's playing against a Colorado defense that is going to be without Travis Hunter. He just needs 2 receptions to get the over mark. I think they're going to spread the wealth in this game. I think he has at least 2 or 3 receptions. Maybe they try to feature him because he hasn't been getting that many targets, but he's been catching everything thrown his way. I don't think he has a drop this season. So I like this.
And what do we have for that USC Colorado projection?
We have USC by 18. So we have
got the slightest
on Colorado and the under. But
we have actually slight value on the under more than anything. But yeah, slight 2 points for value in Colorado, with the line having come down from plus 24.5 to 21.5.
Right.
The upper left screen here. We have
Big Easy was asking about another Friday night lights game back to Louisville, NC State. What do we think of NC State here at home?
Yeah, I don't mind this. I think that's
Very slight lean. Yeah. So just
yeah, I
three
think
and a
this
half,
could
and one.
be like a little money line sprinkle just because of how good NC State's been at home. They're so much better at home. And I don't think Louisville's defense is that great. Their offense is better with Plummer, but Plummer has these road interception problems, which I highlighted earlier. So I don't mind sprinkling a little something on NC State. I'd probably go with the money line, if anything.
Yeah. So if you get 150, I'm sure there's maybe a little bit of a range there, but it's called 150 is consensus at 48% in our sim. So, that's a pretty good 72 profit on average.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I see a bunch of NFL questions in the chat. We'll get to those right after this. Let's get Jake through the later slate, an SEC-filled afternoon, and then we have some Pac-12 after dark with Washington.
Yeah, so Alex McPherson, who's Evan McPherson's little brother.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, so we have Auburn scoring 12 points this game against Georgia. We like Georgia big time. They scored 10 points last week against Texas A&M, and then Georgia's defense is a huge step up compared to Texas A&M's defense for Auburn. Payne Thorne looked really bad last week. I don't know if they're going to go to Robbie Ashford in this game, but either way, I think Georgia's defense should stifle them. I don't see Auburn scoring 21 points in this game. I also am seeing them scoring 3 touchdowns. So I like the push insurance here as well. So even if they hit 2 touchdowns, and even if they score 2 touchdowns or a touchdown late in the game, maybe they'll go for 2 because they're down so much.
Right.
So I like under 2 extra points made there.
Hey, Jake, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
We had that bet. I don't think either of us won so far.
It's 14.5.
It didn't go to 14. It didn't go to 17, certainly. So I guess you're good.
It's nothing happened there. Maybe there's a little late injury and that moves the line in my favor, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's moving it at all. No. And then we like a couple of Mizzou props versus Vandy. Vandy's defense has been terrible this season. We like Cody Schrader over 77.5 rush yards. He had 130 last week. He's been getting a ton of yards per carry. And I think we have him projected for 87.
Yep.
So some value there. And then Luther Burden, I just updated the Sims with DeMarion Houston out for Mizzou. And we have him projected for 127 receiving yards. I think he had 170 or he's had like 150 and 170 in 2 of the last 3 weeks. He's on fire. He's getting pretty much all of Missouri's targets. And Brady Cook's been cooking. He's been really good lately. And if he throws the ball, is more than likely going to Luther Burden and against that Vandy defense. I like the over there. And we're going against Mark Stoops' kid here, Drake Stoops, under 50.5 receiving yards. Iowa State has a pretty good defense, and it's not necessarily knocking Stoops here. Oklahoma has too many weapons to spread the wealth to, and Drake Stoops gets all these underneath routes, and it's going to be tough for him to get 50 yards. We have him at 27 yards or something like that. I could see him getting the 40s. The 2 times he's gone over this number, one of them was against an FCS team, and the other he had 54 yards. And he's gone over by a couple yards each time. And Iowa State's the better defense than those teams that he faced. So I like the under there. And then Roma Dunze, I'm just going to keep going with his over until it doesn't hit. He has well above 100 yards in each game this season. Michael Penix is throwing the ball to him a ton. And Jalen McMillan, I think he's questionable. He didn't play last week. Even if he plays, I like the over here just because I think that'll help with Dunze because they won't double team him. So Give me the over there.
Right.
Hey, Jake, can I quick side note? Luther Burden, he's a true sophomore.
He's a true sophomore, yeah.
Okay, so he's not draft eligible. It looks like just looking at his game log this year, like, geez. Online, his Google 40 is like 4.36. So
yeah, he's going to be a first round pick next year. He was a top 10 recruit last year. So
okay.
A couple people in the chat talking about James Madison. They're hosting South Alabama. I believe the line's 3. It seems like one of those quiet games that we'd have some value on.
Let's see.
We have a lean on James Madison. The line went from, so we have it opposite to where the line moved. The movement went from -4.5 to -3. Despite that the public is 2/3 on James Madison against the spread. So there's some smart dude out there, or hopefully he's not that smart, or they're not that smart, because we agree with the public where we lean James Madison. Looks like it's because we like James Madison's offense to score over the 26 implied total, odds implied total. And that's because, they averaged 37 at home last year. I don't know if you have any returning offensive production stats right off handy from James Madison, Jake.
Let's see.
Last year they were +5 better at home at 37 a game, and effective both on the ground and passing. So, yeah, not surprised to see us lean towards James Madison.
Yeah, so they return 70% of their total production from last year, including offense and defense, mostly defense. So they lost their quarterback. I know that.
Okay.
Colorado State transfer. But Jordan McLeod's been pretty good. He's
he just had 364-4 against, that's a pretty good game.
Yeah, he transferred from USF to Arizona to James Madison, so he's been a little.
He had some big games. He's had another 400 here against UCF a few years ago. So he must be like one of these 25-year-olds.
Yeah, I'd say 22.
You don't see 2019 in many game logs. I mean, 2019, that was when it's a long time ago. That's the Lamar Jackson MVP season. So.
Say what you want about the 25-year-old quarterbacks, but they win national championships.
Exactly.
Twice. Right.
And don't graduate. We'll say that.
Yeah, that's true.
Education's overrated.
Yeah. All right. I see a lot of NFL questions. One quick one was just about fantasy starting Daniel Jones or Justin Fields.
Daniel Jones or Justin Fields. So this is a funny week in fantasy this week. A lot of our projection-based rankings deviate pretty significantly from what the Fantasy Football Today experts. It's actually the biggest deviation I've ever seen in the last few years, where we have a number projected quarterbacks in the top 10, kind of must starts, that are not in the top 10 or barely in the top 10 in the case of Russell Wilson to Fantasy Football Today. And then we have a lot of must starts like Kirk Cousins in the Fantasy Football Today side. And we would actually consider sitting in some cases. So the question, I was just delaying because I forgot what you said.
Daniel Jones and Justin Fields.
Daniel Jones, okay. All right. Daniel Jones, so Daniel Jones is a perfect example. We love him against Seattle as because of his rushing, obviously. And versus who else?
Justin Fields.
Okay, we actually love Justin Fields as well. Which is a tough thing to love these days.
Yes.
But again, I don't know if there's anything. We think that Daniel Jones actually has a slightly higher floor, but a significantly lower ceiling than Fields this week.
Yeah. And we'll stay on the topic of this game with the Broncos at the Bears. 2 props from Steven, one of them being Justin Fields.
Yeah. So I, after going, I think I was 500 on my player props. I wanted to see if I could boost that overall record, because sometimes people don't pay attention to the juice. So I found a nice juicy minus 245. I apologize. But, if you're doing this consistently, there's nothing wrong with going after a number that is hopefully a layup. So over half the passing touchdown. I like it as disappointing as Fields has been this year. The over, in this case, 1 or more touchdowns is 20-10 in his career and 12 of his last 13 games, including every game this season. Every single one of Denver's defense has good players, had a great reputation, had some great stats for the first half of last year. They traded Bradley Chubb and they obviously kind of had a hapless offense. And so it created this, since that middle of last year, they've actually been a very poor defense, capped off by the 70 by Miami. So the last 6 opponent passers have all had a passer rating well over 100, I believe around an average around 120, and at least 2 passing touchdowns. Fields, I'm just thinking Fields was an awesome deep ball passer at Ohio State. He holds on the ball too long, but when he has time, he gets it out there. DJ Moore, the one time he had a competent, starter, depending on how you view Teddy Bridgewater, he had 18.1 yards per reception. When he had bad cams last year, Carolina, Kyle Allen, Darnold, Baker, his average was down to like 12, 13, 14. So we're thinking, again, the desperate Chicago. They see what Miami did against Denver. The field is going to let it rip with his legs, but also a few deep balls that I like DJ Moore.
And Steven, what do we have DJ Moore at? I know I saw on Prize Pick his line is 44.5. I thought that could be a good opportunity to go up and over there.
We have DJ Moore at 54. So if the juice is like relatively normal, yeah, we have value on that one as well.
So I like that. I was thinking, so I'll probably go over that on Prize Picks over 44.5 there.
Yeah. And then the other one is Russell Wilson. I was pleased to see that his line came down from 12.5 to 11.5. So Patrick Mahomes only played a half versus Chicago, and obviously they passed a ton. But he did have 28 yards on 3 carries versus that bad Chicago defense. I think Russell Wilson, he's been all or nothing. He had 56 yards versus Washington in week 2 and had 1 total yard in the other 2 games. His over is, even though he's been running less at Denver versus Seattle, the over 11.5 is still 11-7. So it's still been trending over. And again, he's got a lot of motivation to prove that he doesn't have maybe the worst contract in the history of team sports. I like to hear like his extension that he signed as part of going to Denver actually doesn't kick in until next year. So it's which is a terrifying thing if you're skeptic. So I do think that he'll kind of fight, punch, claw for every single yard. And that includes 12 rushing.
Russell Wilson hasn't been that bad this season, even though they got beat up last week. But Russell Wilson is pretty much getting close to where Mahomes is, instead of being like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, like passer rating wise. And then also for Justin Fields, well, not Justin Fields, but you guys were talking about DJ Moore. So DJ Moore has only had 1 game that was over 41 receiving yards for the season. So that's so that's the reason why I'm pretty sure that the line was set at 44. I mean, this is,
but he's playing against Denver's defense this week, so that's why.
This game is just so bizarre. You lose by, you give up 70 to a team, and then you're a 3.5-point road favorite the following week. It's probably one of the more bizarre situations we'd see. Someone in the chat, Mike, was asking about Fields rushing yards. I'm sure you guys took a look at that. Just wondering what our projection was there.
What's the line
I took a look at that. So I took a look at that, and we had actually 58 rushing yards projected. So we are in line on where that line was set at.
Mm-hmm.
So he might get it, he might not. I mean, that is pretty high, for a quarterback. Although last year he did rush for a lot, so I'm pretty sure the Broncos know about that too. So we'll see how that shakes up. But I mean, it's pretty even.
Right. Before we move on to our other game with a few picks, a few questions from earlier. Rachaad White, his line at 52.5. If we like that there.
Tampa, right. Let me pound around to him.
As a guy that has him on fantasy, I'm scared to death of this.
Yeah, me too.
We're probably going to have New Orleans. We have it right on 50. What's the number 52? We have it right at 52 because, we have him with 14 carries, but under 4 yards a carry. Not surprised against New Orleans, who's, Colin Carter's been defense for a while now.
Right.
And they're allowing under 17 points a game this year. It's interesting. The run defense in terms of yards per carry is actually higher than I would expect.
So I could talk to you about that. So Joe Woods is the defensive coordinator of the Saints, and he was the defensive coordinator for the Browns last year. And we gave up a whole bunch of yards up the middle because there wasn't any defensive tackles. So it doesn't surprise me that their yards per carry is higher this year. And also the Saints had an issue with salaries. So they had to let a lot of people go that were really good that had high salaries.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, it's because the Tampa Bay was so pathetic running the ball last year. Last year's 3.8 and 76 yards is actually one of their good games. So no value here. Probably talked too much about Rachaad White.
All right. So the next one. Yeah.
Tank Dell. Okay. That's a good one because he just went off the other day, right?
Yeah. So Tank Dell has a lot of speed, and they finally got him the ball last week. And
the number's 45.5. Yeah. So we got a ton of projection value on Tank Dell. He obviously doesn't have an extensive game log, but he's been trending up 34 to 72 to 145. So he's due for 290 based on that one, right? So look for an all-time record from Tank Dell. But I think that obviously Pittsburgh's the big surprise has been Stroud, right? And Stroud's yardage, 242, 384, 280. We're projecting him to come down from that, but still solidly into the 225 and up. And Tank Dell is going to get a solid. What's he been getting?
About 6 targets.
He's been getting 28% of the team's yardage, but even if you drop that down to 20% after that last boom, then he should be, to get a number like 40 something, then you need to have your Stroud getting 230 and Dell getting his normal usage, and that's your hitting your number. So if you think that Stroud can get to 250, then there you go. I mean, I think that Stroud might see his first interception this week because turnovers against TJ Watt, but still have plenty of yards.
Right. A few more questions in the chat. Before we hit those, let's go back to another game we like. Another interesting game and interesting line. I believe it started at 3.5 or 3, the line. If I'm correct.
Oh, Tua?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Well, I just think the spread of the game. I think the Bills were favored.
Oh. That was interesting. Because the look-ahead line was a -3, and then usually Buffalo smashes Washington. Their pass rush looks great despite not having Von Miller there. They win by 34. They're at home, and yet the line actually moved off of -3 to -2.5 because Miami won by 50. Right. So that's the deal there. We still have model value on Buffalo, but the reason why I like Tua over 3.5 rushing yards, and we haven't projected for 6. So yes, in terms of the number of yards over, it's very tiny. But in terms of percentage, it's gigantic. It's a lock. Right? Yeah. But in his career, he averages 9.4 rushing yards on the road, just 6.8 at home. Again, that number is not that meaningful, but to me, it's more like a reflection of if you have a better record at home and are playing from ahead and you're handing the ball off to close out games more at home, that versus being on the road and having to scramble and fight for first downs and do these things that you happen when you're an underdog on the road, which they are in this case, even if it's a close underdog.
Right.
And I'm thinking that the Buffalo's ascending pass rush. I think they had like a couple sacks, the 3 sacks, including the one that ended Aaron Rodgers' season, nothing, and then 9 versus Washington. They're kind of beginning to warm up. So I think there's just going to be a case where Tua is going to feel the pressure. He's going to just want to run and get 4 yards.
So there's some news that came across as we were on air right now. So Poyer is out, the safety for the Bills. So that is pretty big that he's not going to be playing in this game. So without him, they're going to have a hard time covering Tyreek Hill and Waddle in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can reevaluate some value there.
Yeah. I didn't have a chance to take a look yet, but that rushing prop. I mean, Poyer does sometimes support the run, so that should bode well for Tua to get some yards.
Right. Well, Derek, you're looking on the other side of the ball with Stephon Diggs over 6.5 receptions. A lot to do with the Dolphins secondary too, right?
Right. So Stephon Diggs. Over the 2 out of the last 3 games against the Dolphins, he's had at least 7 receptions. And then all this year, each of those games, he have had at least 7 receptions in those games. So Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, he was asked the wide receivers for the opposing teams, would you have a cornerback shadow them? And his answer was, I don't think with our team it's something that we'll do right now, but we could do it down the line. So that tells me that the Pro Bowl cornerback of Xavier Howard is not going to shadow Stephon Diggs the whole entire game. The Bills like to get favorable matchups for Diggs and different parts of the offensive line. So that means that Stephon Diggs could be lined up against someone else other than the Pro Bowl cornerback on the majority of this game because of what the defense coordinator for the Dolphins have said. Now, our Sportsline model has it as an over, but with this news and looking at these stats, I think it's going to be over. And then also with the juice on this prop, they're even thinking it's going to be over as well.
Right.
Yeah. I would not want to do a Stephon Diggs in a big marquee matchup and not targeting him, feeding him.
What would
he looks
be the
pretty mean when he's yelling at you, when he's not happy with the he'll let it be known. So
I just don't. I mean, this is like an actual question, but like what would make them not have their best player on Diggs the whole game?
Well, sometimes the cornerbacks, they like certain positions of the field. So if Xavier Howard likes to be on, let's say, the left side of where they lined up, then they'll just keep him over there. But I think it has something to do with Ramsey not being there, that he's out for like another month or two. So they're going to figure out a way to not expose those other people, probably doing zone coverage or something. But he's not going to be shadowing Stephon Diggs, that's going to be a problem for them, because I've seen games to where Stephon Diggs will be in the slot going against the third cornerback on the depth chart and just absolutely annihilate them. So hey, that's fine with me.
Diggs moves all around, but like Richard Sherman, the knock on him for a lot of years was, he only plays one side, and that was like the kind of thing. Whereas, Jets all-time great corner Revis could go anywhere. Just and then and so I think and then even this year Sauce Gardner was getting the critique because everyone assumed, how can CeeDee Lamb getting all those catches? Sauce is not as good as he likes to think, and he says, I only guarded him once. So I guess even the Jets use Sauce in a single,
So after that game, Sauce was like, hey, I want to be on the number one wide receiver wherever he goes. And so I haven't checked since then because I haven't had any props against or.
Well, then he played the Jets and I played the Patriots, and who's the number one wide receiver in the Patriots?
That's true.
So it's hard to tell, right?
You just figure out which side and then just stay over there.
It's like being the most honest capper.
Right.
It's tough to touch.
Let's look at Dalton Kincaid too. We took him a few weeks ago. Like, this offense receiver room in general is really deep. Kincaid's someone we targeted before, and we like him again this week, Jake.
Yeah, so I went with Kincaid 2 weeks ago. Luckily, I didn't go with him last week because he had -1 yards.
All right.
But I like him this week.
I think he finished with 3. I think he finished with 3, Jake.
2 reception, 3 yards, something like that. Yeah. And so I think that was just game flow because he had both of those catches on the first drive of the game, and they didn't really need to do much against Washington to win that game. And I think the game flow is going to dictate a lot more passing in this game, probably more plays just in general with both of these high-paced offenses. Another stat I wanted to say was teams that have scored 60-plus points, they're 0-7 or 0-6 ATS in their next game following that. So that helps you if you're a Bills fan right there. But I think Kincaid, his line's 2.5 receptions. I like the over there. I think over 23.5 receiving yards as well. He's running plenty of routes. I think just the game flow hurt him last week, and I think he easily hits this number this week. I saw Mike said it moved to 24.5. I still like it there.
We have a value. Open. Sorry, Jacob. We the projection, we like the over as well in the projection. And interesting, our projected rank for Kincaid is much lower than the Fantasy Football Today experts. So I can't speak for them, but I would assume that if you ask Dave, Jamie, and Heath, they would all like the over this number as well.
Right. Before we move into our other ones, Finn has a question about Raheem Mostert.
Miami.
Yeah, so with the Dolphins, they have multiple guys, the running back by committee. So they're going to be splitting up these carries, and then with at Chin, since they put out a tweet about that, about having his name pronounced differently. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, really? He wants it Chan?
Yeah. So he went from A-Chain to A-Chan, I think it is.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's tough for me to adjust to. But Mostert, we like him over 51.5. Buffalo's defense is actually, again, it's a reflection of oftentimes the opponents, clearly. But they did, for what it's worth, allow considerably more against the run, both in total yards and yards per carry last year in their home games. It seems like Buffalo, it's kind of weird, but Buffalo is not built to play in Buffalo, right? And they slide when the weather's bad, when they're going against like the Bengals in the playoffs. And so maybe that's what it is. So I don't think weather's an issue this time of year. Nope. So maybe, so that's the one saving grace. But Mostert's the designs of Miami's offense and this threat with A-Chain or H-N, both running backs, not that they ever conserve their energy or have to save, but they can just go all out, and they're so creative, The only thing I could imagine, a couple shovel passes and those little when the quarterback tosses the pass ball in the air in front of him instead of behind, counting as a receiving yard as opposed to a rushing yard could hurt. So I don't know what the number is for rushing plus receiving. Mostert isn't a big receiver, but maybe that has safer value. If the number is like 62.5 for total yards,
right,
that could be a safer value.
And what about, while we're on the topic of this game, like asking about Josh Allen and his rushing yard prop?
Yeah, 35.5 minus 120. We have 33.5 as his projection. So nothing cleared projection value. His recent game log this year, the emphasis of trying to run him less. Well, you can't really tell against Washington. It was a blowout, and even Vegas was kind of a blowout. So he hasn't had to run much, but his peak this year is only 6. For Josh Allen to be running under 5 times a game is not Josh Allen. Like in our projection is already down to under 6. Beginning of the year, we had him around 7.5 per game. So our model's already adjusted that significantly. I think, and James Cook had a big game. And they are using Murray and Harris on the goal lines. So yeah, could hurt. And Josh Allen's really taking a concerted effort to not fumble the ball so much. His interceptions are one thing, because at least they can be the equivalent of a arm punt. But the fumbles is what often kills them.
Right. So we have a few more props, but before we get into that, I think it's a good time to share our news quick to get the people excited again. So those who have been watching the Sportsline Model Show, you know that we have been doing about an hour show every Tuesday. We're going to be switching our style a little bit, rebranding a little bit, and we're going by Inside the Lines now, powered by Sportsline, and this is going to be a almost daily show. I'll pull up the schedule here. So we're going to be on probably 15 to 20 minutes most days of the week. Sunday night, Steven and I will be doing look-ahead lines for the games that have finished. Monday will be more of our act now, sense of urgency plays for NFL and college football. Tuesday, we start to have some injury predictions. Derek will come in with some of those, some weather. We'll see some overreactions, a little more college football heavy. Wednesday, John and Jake will take over for MLB. We'll be in playoff season. And Thursday, we will hit those final totals, those spread picks we like, updates from stuff we talked about earlier in the week. And Friday, of course, as always, we'll have our prop party. But this is going to be a great way to get to you guys every day, show you what we're good at, and educate even better.
Yeah, it's exciting for me because I only have to work 15 to 20 minutes a day. And in theoretically, I think we're going to do this at 1. So yeah, I can get up around 11, get into work by noon, little production pre-planning meeting. And we're reacting a lot to the latest lines. So I can't, no reason to look at those at 9 when we're not on for another 4 hours. So yeah, it's really going to be fantastic. You have the dream. You get paid full-time work. And,
right. So you'll see it. Yeah. It won't be all every day that you'll see. Everyone will be in the chat doing what they do best. But it'll be quicker. We'll hit what's important on the day that it is important. I think this will be a really great way to get interactive through the week, really show you guys through our actual process and how we get through the week looking at the data and at the model. So this, I guess, officially is our last Sportsline Model Show, but big things to come. You'll see me and Steven Sunday night after the early edge. We will start our new schedule. So just wanted to share that news because big things are ahead. But we'll move back. We have 3 more player props to get to before and finish out our questions. So right. Dalton Schultz, we can start with Derek.
All right. So Dalton Schultz on the under 30.5 receiving yards. So Dalton Schultz this year has only went over 30 receiving yards only once. And I know what people are thinking. Hey, doesn't he have more receiving yards like last year? That's correct, but he was on the Cowboys. This is a different year. So he hasn't really been given the ball that much to get yards after catch. And so with the Steelers, they only give up 8.6 yards to opposing tight ends per catch. So if you multiply that times our Sportsline projection of 3.2 receptions for Dalton Schultz, then you only get 27.5 projected receiving yards. So that is under the 30.5. Yes, our Sportsline model has the over, but I haven't seen it for this year.
What do they
And also
know?
the model, and then the model also takes into consideration from last year. So this is where, just looking at this year and how they're playing as compared to, the
Derek
lines.
has jumped ahead, and he's no longer representing the Sportsline model. He's purely on the inside the lines. He said, leave that. That's the past, baby. This Sportsline model is in the past. But yeah, listen to Derek, but also move now on 30.5, because pretty much every sports book has that number down to as low as 25.5 and a lot of 28.5. So, but you can get 30.5 multiple spots. Just get them now.
Yeah, so this line's been moving. I believe earlier, when it first got brought out, it was like 31. So it's been moving since I've been doing research on
so
this.
but if you like the over, like moi, then maybe you go and maybe you wait.
We got a showdown.
I mean, Brevin Jordan, $5 each way.
Yeah.
Brevin Jordan got a lot of targets last week against the
Well, we
Jaguars.
have Baltimore. Me and Derek. This could be the last time me and Derek speak to each other because Baltimore was this week.
I know.
So
This
we'll
is big.
we'll just use Slack, Derek.
Yeah.
Keep it professional. Keep it professional.
Yeah. All right. So we, of course, have another kicker prop, Derek. I mean, this is just the best part of the show.
I think I made a little mistake there. Dustin Hopkins is on the Browns, but
I think that's my mistake.
no, he's okay. Just to be clear, these kickers go from team to team like almost every year. So I mean, that's like honest thing. Like, I mean, if you think of
there's not even a
Dalton
picture
Schultz.
of him on the internet in a Browns uniform that I could find.
Yeah. Probably like 6 other uniforms, but just not the Browns.
He's no Cade York. He's no Cade York, right?
Right. Oh, everybody knows about Cade York, even though the guy's on the practice squad of the Titans. But so Hopkins, so he has made at least 2 field goals as a Browns kicker. So we like the over on the 1.5 field goals made. The Ravens have given up to opposing teams at least, on average, 3 field goals made per game. So, and then the Sportsline model has the over on 1.5 field goals made. So, with the defenses for the AFC North, that usually means there's going to be multiple chances for kickers to kick because points are going to be at a premium.
Yeah,
so
bend
that's
but
why
don't break.
like
Bend but don't break. Allow field goals, not the touchdowns.
And then it's plus money as well.
Yeah, and there's no Nick Chubb to run it from 5 yards and in. So,
most of the time when they go against like the Ravens, it takes them at least 20 carries to get 100 yards. So they're going to have to figure out other ways to get the ball down the field, which will probably be passing it, and then barely getting the field goal range.
There's going to be a lot of field goals.
Yeah. Let's move over to Mac Jones with the Patriots at the Cowboys. Let me see what that spread is too, because that's a really interesting.
Off 7. It's down to 6.5 now.
Okay.
That one, I know that's interesting too, but I don't know who had it, but I was looking at that line too, so you guys can go.
Yeah, so I got that. It moved from -140 to -125 on DK yesterday. I got on Prize Picks, which is -137, but I like this. And Mac Jones is getting a lot of Grayson Allen comps, which is funny because they went to rival Jacksonville high schools. Both of these Jacksonville.
What's in the
boys.
water? Grayson Allen, Mac Jones, Jake Fettner, 3 just like cheap shot artists from that area.
Hey. It's funny. My cousin actually played soccer with Mac Jones, and he played basketball with Grayson Allen.
He survived?
They survived. He was on their team, so luckily. So,
okay.
But that's still pretty cool. But I would have liked it better if ball hawker Trayvon Diggs was playing in this game. But even without him, I think New England could be playing from behind in this game. Mac could have to throw the ball a little more often than he'd like and throws a pick. He doesn't have a ton of weapons on that team, as we've mentioned before. I like this.
You get
separation for those wide receivers are going to be at a premium. So, you
can get -117. So, and then a little comment. One reason why we're kind of switching the goal of our show a little bit is to, again, we're doing it every day with the intention that a lot of people who like us are probably betting every day. And so if you're betting every day and betting 5, 10, making 5, 10 bets every day, that's a lot. And so every dollar counts. And so, for example, this year in our A-rated money line picks in baseball, there may have been 100 of them, and we're made 53% accurate and slightly down because we grade ourselves against the consensus closing spread. But if we graded ourselves against the best price at the best time of the day, we probably would have profited around 5 plus, using 100 unit risk. We'd have got +5 on every one of those, and we'd be significantly up if you're using our data the way it was designed to be used, not as a capper right before the game starts, but as a model looking for the best time and place for the value. So that's where our goal is, to try to get more of that information. And so, yeah, when if you're gonna, every sports book offers the same kind of promotions. They're all giving you $1,000, $1,000 to sign on, whatever bonus. So use it, get them all, whatever is legal in your area, and shop for the best price.
Right. Yeah, and we start this as soon as Sunday night. Like I said, right after the early edges, Sunday Night Football pregame, me and Steven will hop on and show you as much as we can for the games that have been finished, with the Thursday night 1 o'clock slate, afternoon slate. So we will be sharp all week. So let's take a look at our recap. Screenshot this, do what you need to do. Plenty of picks, but that's how we like to do it. It's been working for us the past few weeks, so we are ready for another great week here. Again, continue to ask us questions on Twitter through the week, whatever it is that you need. And we are really excited about this new step to our show. So thanks for joining the Sportsline Model Show. This will be the last, but big things to come inside the lines.
I'm tearing up.
I know.
Hey, it's like David Letterman. Letterman, you guys don't remember this. He had a morning show for around 2 months before he stopped that. That got canceled, and he went up to his late night show. So we're like the David Letterman of whatever the hell we do.
That's good signs for us. All right. So for the last time, thank you for joining the Sportsline Model Show, and we will now see you Sunday.